Mr. Cannabis.
DLI is a measure of how much light plants receive each day, combining both intensity and lighting duration over a 24-hour period, measured in units of moles per square meter per day. By measuring and optimizing DLI, growers can ensure that plants receive the right amount of light to thrive and achieve maximum yields. Different plants have different DLI requirements based on their natural habitats. By understanding the optimal DLI of each plant, growers can adjust their lighting to provide the ideal amount of light without overexposing or underexposing the plants. And here's some optimal DLI requirements for common indoor crops. And as you can note at the bottom, many sources still put cannabis at 40 to 50 moles per square meter per day. Supplying the right amount of light to plants can have several positive effects, including reducing node spacing, stimulating root and shoot growth, increasing stem thickness, flower size and plant vigor, and increasing nutrient and water uptake. And plants exposed to the optimal light also tend to be less susceptible to disease and pest outbreaks, as they have naturally higher metabolic rates. Cannabis requires full sun to flourish, but indoors, cultivators must consider the light height, the output, and the duration to achieve the proper lighting conditions. Cannabis plants require different DLI levels depending on their growth stage, and it's essential to adjust the lighting accordingly. So let's talk a bit about DLI for cannabis in its vegetative and flowering stages, and how to adjust the lighting duration to initiate a flowering period. As I mentioned previously, cannabis seedlings or clones require a low ppfd, whereas a cannabis plant flourishes when supplied with a lot of light in its vegetative and flowering stages. Providing the plant with too much light too early may result in damage, as it needs time to adjust to the higher light intensities. To initiate the flowering period, the lighting duration is reduced significantly, typically from 18 hours down to 12 hours, which also results in a lower DLI. Light intensity is then gradually increased over the flowering period to build the extra biomass. Providing such a high DLI with just 12 hours of lighting requires a strong grow light able to supply such a high ppfd. To progress the cannabis plant through its vegetative and flowering stage, different lighting durations, or photoperiods, are required to simulate the season's natural rhythm. So in general, you want to keep your lights on for as long as possible, but also need to create a drastic shift when initiating the flower period. Common cannabis photoperiods are 18 hours for the vegetative phase and 12 hours for the flowering phase. There is a range, however, and you can adjust your lighting to fit into it. As the ideal cannabis DLI requirement changes from week to week, it's recommended measuring and adjusting the DLI repeatedly and regularly. Of course, there are cannabis DLI calculators out there to help you out. The flowering period is not required for autoflowers per se, as they flower based on an internal clock. Therefore, you can keep the lights on for longer to achieve a higher DLI with lower ppfd. Keeping a photoperiod around 20 hours is a good place to start when growing autoflowers. Autoflowers, also called day-neutral cannabis varieties, automatically switch from vegetative growth to flowering stage based on age, as opposed to the ratio of light to dark hours required with regular photoperiod-dependent varieties. As for the DLI, this means that the plant can be considered in a vegetative state even when the flowers are present. Therefore, no flowering phase is initiated by the lighting schedule, and DLI levels over 40 moles per square meter per day can be kept until the plant is harvested. It's important to note that all the research on cannabis DLI, cannabis PAR levels, and cannabis CO2 usage, and every other lighting aspect won't be able to exactly cover the needs of your specific plants in your individual setup. There are many other factors such as room temperature, spectral light distribution, amount and quality of water, nutrients, cannabis genetics, and many more that have an influence on how well your cannabis plants grow. So I recommend treating all aforementioned values and ranges as a basic guideline to act as a starting point for optimizing your lighting for your particular plants. If you see them happy and healthy, you're definitely on the right track.